So, good evening once again.
Good evening, sir.
It's been a long time, and so far we've discussed many things. But today, um, we want to tackle one major thing in HTML, that is forms. So, we want to take input from a user, then we will submit it for processing. But for now, we will use the HTML to design the form. Then we will learn how to use the how to process the forms. Depends on when we learn or when we try to learn the PHP. We use PHP to process a form, and we can also use JavaScript to also process a form. But when we want to store it into a database, we use PHP instead of JavaScript. But when we want to do some calculation and different things, then we can use JavaScript to perform let's say the processing. So let me quickly open my Sublime test. Okay, so let's begin with the form. So for example, we can go and buy, or we can go and buy a form for maybe application form. Within it, we may need to require to input our name, contact, and sometimes we have to select in between two fields, that's the gender, maybe male or female. And we can also have to check some of things that we can do. You have a list of options there, then we have to check um, out of the list what we can do. So we have different types, and so let's begin. So let me create a new file, then let me save it. Save. Okay, so I'll save it at my desktop. So I'll name it forms forms.html. And then so I'll save it. Let me try to increase size. So I'll start with my structure, the basic structure of a web page. So the doc type, then HTML like this. Then okay, I have it being duplicated here. So let me take off one. So I'll give that.
Sir, the other time I wanted to ask. Hello, sir.
Continue now.
Hello, sir. The other time I wanted to ask this question. That what is the difference between when you some you begin from HTML, some you begin from doc type. Why?
Okay, actually, from the introduction of this course, I try to say that the doc type tells the browser what type of HTML are we using. So it tells the browser that we are using the current HTML, which is the HTML5. So the older version of HTML doesn't include the doc type HTML. Please hope
Okay.
you understand.
Yes, yes.
So it tells the browser the version of HTML that we are using. So
Okay.
I'll give the title form. Okay, so in between this, let me increase it. Okay. So in HTML, when we want to define a form, we use the form tag. So it goes as a normal tag with a less than, then form. Then we close it like this. Then we give it the closing tag like this. So we use this form to define or to tell the browser that this is a form. So inside this form, then we can choose whatever that we want. So example of forms that we normally see is the search engine such as the Google. So what Google use is a form, and also um, a login and a registration system is also a form. So with this form, we have something that we call the input. So it's the most used form element. It's the most used form element. So when we want to describe a certain input, we use the tag input, then we give it a type. So inside this form, that will state our input. So we will begin with the types of inputs that we have. So I'll try as I move on. So I'll try to state, and then you will see it how it appears on the browser. So let me begin with there's the simple input. So we have the input, and mind you, this input is a self-closing tag. It's a self-closing tag. So we don't have closing input. It's just like this. So I've specified this. Let me save it, and let me try to open it in a browser to see how it will appear. Okay. So I have it here. Let me increase um, the page. So this is the normal input. When I type input, this is what we see. I can type anything inside this input. Please hope you get me.
All right.
So with just a normal input, this is what we see. So let's try to move to the types. So if you want to choose in between different things. So this is the normal input. Um, the input is an inline element. So let's say, for example, I add another input here. When I add another input here, let me take off this. We'll get back to it. Save it. Then move to the browser. Refresh. So we can see that I have it being aligned in the horizontal way. And please hope you can see.
All right, sir.
So if you want to bring it in the next step, you can use CSS to do, or you can put them in the paragraph tag to display them in the block view. So let me put them in the paragraph tag. Then closing paragraph tag. Then I'll put this one to inside the paragraph tag. Then a closing paragraph like this. So let's move to the first type that we have. So we have the input. So we want to state the type. So we use type like this. Then equal to with a double quote, just as we can see. Then the first type that we'll talk about is the text type. So the text type is similar to just writing input without anything. It's similar. So the text is used to define a single line text input. A single line text input. I will explain that when we move to the browser. So let me save it again. Then so we have it aligned in the horizontal vertical way. So this was the normal input, and we have input with the type text. So text, you can say I can type anything inside, and it says it's a single line text input. It's used to define a single line. So as you can see, whenever I type, it moves in a horizontal way. It doesn't break to the next line. When I even press enter, it doesn't move to the next line or a new line. It's just in a continuation form. That's the meaning of single line text input. It moves in the horizontal way without moving to the new line. So this is the first,
So that is a single line.
yeah. You get to those with the double or two or more lines. So this is a single line with a text. So let me introduce um, one thing associated with, let's say, form. We have something that we call label. So as the name implied, this label is used to attach a specific thing. So I can use this label to attach a specific input. So when I want to specify it or give a label to this input, I can say that maybe, let me use input with a type. I'll give the label using the type. So this one is a text. This is a text. So I'll save it, move to the browser, refresh. So you can see we have the label at the top of the input as text. So let's move, using the same label, let's move to, let me cut this and put it inside this paragraph rather. So it's associated with this. So let's move to the next type that we have. So paragraph, then let me type label. So the next one that we move is called the password, the type of password. So let me type password here. Then, so input like this, then type password, just like this. We've not gotten up to where we want to use the name. So pardon me if you see a name appearing and I'm cleaning it. It have a useful uses, but for our tutorial today, we may not need it. That's why I'm cleaning it. So let me save this password, then move to the browser. Then let me refresh. Okay, so I have password and I have text here. Let's try to witness something. I'm typing inside the text field. I'm going to type inside this um, password and use witness something. So you can see that in the password field, as soon as I type, it gives me some dot dot instead of the characters that I am typing. So the password field tries to hide the information that you are typing. And please hope it's clear.
Yes, sir.
So we have the type of password. So let's try to move to the next type that we have. Um, so paragraph, let me take a paragraph again, then label. So this one, type of email. So input with the type email like this. So let me save it and move to the browser again. So refresh. So we have the email. Um, as we all know, some emails, not some, all emails have um, a specific characteristics. So if you type a series of characters with those without those characteristics, we can say that this is not an email. But when we see those characteristics inside those characters, we can see that this is an email. For example, an email contains the at sign and dot. So these are the two main things that the email field tries to check. So if you specify this field to be an email and the person types a series of characters without this at and then this um, dot sign, it wouldn't submit. It will try to tell the person that, please hope you can see from my screen. It's telling that
Yes,
please
sir.
enter a path followed by at then dots and at dots. Please hope you can see from the screen.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir. Say it's incomplete.
yeah. So without those features, you can't submit this form. So let's try to move to the different type of input that we have. Um, so please, do you want to type or I should move on?
We are typing. We are on it typing.
Okay, so I should wait a little bit.
For my side, you can move on. Please ask Ray.
You can move on.
Okay. So paragraph, then label. So I'll move to the numbers. So the number type. So input with the type number like this. So I'll save it again, then move to the browser. Sorry. I'll move to the browser, try to refresh. Let me try to reduce the size. So we can see that we have the form here. So with the number, you can't type anything apart from number. So when you try to enter any character apart from number, it wouldn't work. Only numbers that this field accepts. It's only number. So when we type this number, you can see that it's appearing and it has some arrows inside. These arrows, not all browsers support this type. So we can have a browser with this input type number, but we wouldn't see these arrows. We wouldn't see them. So if your browser does not show this these arrows, it's normal. Not all browsers support that.
So it looks as if the arrow will automatically continue the number that you are typing.
Yeah, this one will increase it, then this one will decrease it. So let's try to add certain things to this. So let's go back to the browser. Let me try to take this one off. So you can see that as I try to enter, it tries to increase the number. And when I try to press the down arrow, it tries to reduce it. So for example, we want to get a person's age. And we all know that age is a positive number. But with this field, the person can enter a negative number. So how do we restrict um, the numbers that we want the person to type? So we have something called the minimum and then the maximum. So we can set the minimum number, then we can also set the maximum number. So let's try to move to the code. So within this input, we have something called the min. The min, then you state the minimum number. So the minimum number I can say from 1, then you can add maximum. That's the max. So you can say the maximum number should be maybe 5. So let's try to save it and move to the browser again. Refresh. So we can see that when I try to press the down arrow, it tells me 1 and it cannot move anything further again unless I try to increase it. And when it reaches 5, it can't also be increased. So it's within 1 to 5. And we have something called the step. So this one moves in a step of 1. So we have something called the step. So the step, for example, if I want to include a decimal in it, so I can say that the step should be 0. Maybe 0.1. So it should move in a step of 0.01. By default, it moves in a step of 1, but you can change it to anything that you want. So let me refresh it back and let me try to increase it. So you can see that we have 1.0, 0.1, 1.02 in that order. And please hope you can see.
Okay.
Okay. So let's try to move to different form or different type of input. So we're talking about the text, password, email, then number. So let's try to talk about label. So let's talk about date. So let's talk about date. So input, then type. So the type, let's see, we take date like this. So let's save it and move to the browser. Refresh. So please hope you can see the date. So we have the format, the date format. That's the month at the beginning, days, then year. Sometimes it also depends
Please,
on the browser.
can't you change it?
The date.
Like the format.
Sometimes it depends on the browser that you are using. Depends on the browser.
Because my format is just like yours. And I wanted
Yeah.
to know whether you can make it year, month, and day.
Actually, I haven't seen it in that way, but
Okay.
I think we can change it. I think we can change it.
Okay.
So when we click on this, we have a pop-up showing a date. So when we select a date, it automatically tries to input, and we can do it manually as well. Can do it manually as well. Yes. So the date to, I think we can set the maximum date for it, and we can also set the minimum date using the same keyword, max and then the min. So maybe I can set the minimum date. So the format was month, day, and then year. Am I right? Month, day, and then year. So we can say that the minimum date should be maybe 09.
One of you have no.
Then maybe 01. Maybe something like this. So this to be the minimum date. So let's save it and refresh. Let me try to minimize it so that I can have a proper view of it. We have some arrows at the top that we can use to navigate to the next month, next year, and the rest. Okay. Okay, so we have it here. So you can select the year, month. So let's try. So you can choose the year, that's the month. And we can also choose the year using this. So it depends on the browser that you are using. Each and every browser has different way and different looks of how it appears. So it left it some few seconds for our time. So let's try to move to the next type of input that we have. So we've talked about text, password, email, then number, and then the date. So let's try with the time. So we have input called time. So paragraph, then label. So this one's time. So I'll type input, then with the type of time like this. Save it. Move to my browser. Refresh. So we have this form or this way which represent the time. That's the hour, minute, and then the others. So with this, I can choose this, and I have my 7:50 a.m. as the time. So we have the input time. And let's try to move to a different one. So far what we have been discussing, all of them is a single line input. It's a single line input. So let's try to move to the next type. So paragraph, label. So let's talk about files. So if you want to select a file, for example, if you want to upload your image or CV to attach to the form that you are submitting, how do we do it? So we use the input, then a type called file. So with a type of file, save, refresh. So we have files here, then choose file. So when you click on it, it opens a dialog box or a window frame, and for you to choose your file that you want to pick.
My own is just like the input form. Please, can I see the code?
So let's see, we have the name of the file here. So this is
it. Just like that, but it appears it's like how do you call it?
And not just like the input.
The password. Yes.
Okay. Sometimes it depends on the browser. Sometimes the browser too does that. So try to click inside and see if it will open any window for you.
Okay. Okay, I click inside and it brings me a dialog box.
Yeah, okay. So that's the file. And we can see that this type, it allows us to choose only one file. You can't choose multiple files. So what if you want to choose a multiple file? What do we do? So for example, I want to choose about 3 files. This won't permit me to do that. So let's quickly move to the code. We have something that we can add to our code to allow us to select multiple um, files. So we have the word multiple like this, just multiple like this. Then you save it. So this will allow us to choose multiple files. So save, move to the browser, then refresh. So when I click on it, um, the dialog box open. Then you can see that beside it, I can even highlight, but the first one was not permitting me to highlight. So I can highlight as much as I want. And it also gives you a check box beside them. So you can choose any number that you want. So open, then you can see I have 8 files. So when I put on it, I put my cursor on it, I can see um, the names of the files inside a two-tip box that have popped up. I think our time is up, and the next 6 minutes we'll be meeting for PHP. So when this one meets, I think we should continue the rest of the type tomorrow
Okay, sir.
so that we
We
can
are the same person coming for the PHP.
yeah, so that we can meet for the PHP.
Okay. So next meeting, please.